My name is Stephen D'Alterio. I'm from Ithaca and currently a student at Hobart and Waynesmith Colleges. I really appreciate being here and I appreciate everybody else for being here. I'm going to be introducing Shani Wilson and Ted Forsythe, who were fighters for Rochester's Police Accountability Board today, and also Cliff Chan, member of the Geneva Community Compact's Police Training Subcommittee, and also one of the friendliest people I met when I was introduced to the Geneva community. So it's lovely to see everybody here today.
How are you? My name is Shani Wilson. I am the chair of the Police Accountability Board here in Rochester, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. This is the very first of its kind here, and really excited to be here. My background is in medicine, so I am a physician assistant. I have worked in internal medicine for the last 7 years, and I've done inner city medicine, also practicing internal medicine in the inner city. I also work with HIV and hepatitis C patients, and I also work with patients that use drugs. So that's my background.
Shani, we had the privilege of being able to welcome you to the Geneva community. I believe it was last week or a week and a half ago. And in your address, you mentioned 5 pillars of what an effective police accountability board should represent. Could you fill us in on the importance of those pillars?
Yep, so let me just go over the 5 pillars again for those that were not at the meeting that I attended. So the 5 pillars start with an independent agency of city government separate from our RPD, the power to independently investigate complaints of police misconduct, subpoena power to compel the production of evidence and witnesses, disciplinary power, and the power to review and evaluate RPD patterns, practices, and policies and procedures to recommend systemic changes and to prevent misconduct from happening in the first place. So I think that we're currently now in a fight with the our local police locus club on the two of these different the subpoena power and disciplinary power, right? Because that is what that, and also police very much less like the police procedures and policy review, even though because the Citizen Review Board did not have that authority, but because that is what gives us teeth, right? That is what we are able to we're able to do. But I think that all 5 of these pillars are important because it gives us a well-rounded view and the ability to actually hold the police accountable for the things that they do within the city of Rochester. I know a lot of, to Sarah, personal story. I've been a physician assistant in the inner city for 7 years almost, and I've had, multiple patients over the years that have been beaten by police, that have had traumatic brain injuries from police violence. And, because of that, and I've had folks that have been incarcerated for most of their lives for defenses that a white person in the suburbs would definitely not see. And so, I've had to listen to stories and had to diagnose, a traumatic brain injury from batons, somebody being hit in the face with batons repeatedly. So I kind of had to see the darker side and the unfortunate realism that comes with policing in our city. And so that is why I hope I answered your question correctly. If not, I can continue to clarify. But that is why I think these things are important. I think all 5 pillars is what actually gives us a well-rounded approach and also teeth to be able to actually make some definable changes.
It would just be, we've been talking about a police accountability board, but also similarly, this idea of a civilian review board has been raised multiple times. And so it's been difficult to kind of draw distinctions between the two.
The Police Accountability Board seeks to balance the power in Rochester. It is a possibility, right? It is an open question as to what kind of a future the community here wants. It's an open question as to the kind of community the people in Geneva want. So before you can have meaningful relationships, before you can get into community policing that actually means something, before you can actually redefine and reimagine your public safety apparatus, you need to have equitable power. And to do that, you need to give civilians who live in the city the ability to review and investigate and decide over cases and policies, how things should work. As we've seen in Rochester for decades, since at least the 1950s, if not before, people abused by the police have called for substantive power to investigate complaints, to review them, to interview people, to discipline police officers, not just make recommendations to the chief, but actually hold the power to make the recommendation, and then the chief is bound to follow the recommendation, which is what we did in Rochester. A CRB, a Civilian Review Board, which is what Rochester has now, they come in waves, and they tend to be a reformist approach that I think comes with the best of intentions, but generally gives the community no real power. It actually stymies progress in my thinking. Civilian review boards tend to collect complaints. They review the internal affairs or the police investigation of those complaints, and then they make a recommendation to the chief of police about what they should do. But the chief, as in Rochester's current civilian review board system, is under no obligation to actually act on anything that board tells him to do. So I think the real difference between a police accountability board and a civilian review board is power. I think a PAB gives the community real power where the police have to deal with the community. They can no longer push them aside or placate them with people on a board that represent interests that they don't have to listen to. Whereas the Civilian Review Board, I think, was an innovative idea back in the 80s and 90s, but it didn't go far enough. And in fact, I think it hindered progress. And it's basically a review mechanism where a body of civilians look at complaints and then make a recommendation that the chief doesn't have to do anything with.
And so, Cliff, while you were working on the community compact, what were the powers you're hoping to exercise over police training? What were the goals of that subcommittee?
Right. So the community compact was started way back 9 years ago, I believe, when there was a police killing, a police shooting of an unarmed Black person in Geneva. And the community got together with the help of the Department of Justice. And I would invite Lucille to jump in at any point here because she was a part of that. But what the community compact is an agreement to develop initiatives to build positive relationships between the police, city officials, youth, and community organizations. They have been working on a number of initiatives over the years. It was renegotiated and revitalized in 2016. That's the point at which 2017 was when I got involved with the police training subcommittee. So police training, cross-cultural competence, and implicit bias was explicitly agreed upon. And they have also been working to try to get more local Genevans and people of color to apply for open positions and to help them take the test, understand what the process is, so that we can diversify the number of police officers, diversify the police force. They have been working to improve the complaint process. They have been working on a variety of issues. So the key thing to keep in mind here about what that already has is that it does not review complaints. It only works on issues that all parties can agree on. Some form of citizen oversight of policing was recommended by the community groups that are part of this compact, but it was not agreed upon that that would be part of what this compact would work on when the renegotiation was done in 2016. So at the community compact meeting in 2017, when the community found pictures of a Geneva police officer wearing a Confederate flag on his Facebook page, these pictures on his Facebook page. The community compact, the police in the city refused to even put that idea on the table for discussion because it wasn't part of the initial agreement that would be something that this group would work on. So the community compact does good work. It is a good communication tool, but it can really only discuss what the city and the police department are willing to talk about. So the group receives complaints, and they're told the number of complaints at each meeting. If these complaints have been sustained or denied, basically, or they're still in process, but no details are given. And at most, I think there's about 8 complaints a year. So there is really no power to change police, to review police complaints or to change any police or have any accountability of whatever decisions that the police make. So I think that, or one of the things that Ted was talking about was, what kind of body does Geneva want to have to increase accountability, transparency, openness, and police reform and police change? This has to be, done together as a, I think the community and the police can co-produce good policing, co-produce professionalism. And this openness and transparency will increase the ability, increase the trust that people have in the process and make them more willing to come forward with complaints if they think that something will be done.